Welcome to How You Pictured It, the podcast for creative entrepreneurs ready to grow their business in a way that feels good. Here you'll find actionable tips and tools to create the business and life you pictured. I'm your host, Kate Hyde with Dear Kate Brand Strategy. Let's get started. I'm here with Steph Zakas. She is a mindset and business coach for creatives. I'm so excited to talk to her today. We're talking about ADHD and how that kind of goes hand in hand with entrepreneurship sometimes. I am recently treating my ADHD. So this is a fun conversation for me, I think. And I'm looking forward to talking to you, Steph. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself? What's your background?
Yeah. Okay. Where do I start? So I guess I'll start with my entrepreneur journey.
Yeah.
So I originally started my business back in like 2006. So it's been a little while. When I was living in Orlando, I am born and raised in Ohio. We just talked about that briefly, but born and raised in Ohio. And then I moved to Florida to go to film school. I did film school, then realized it's really expensive to like move out and like go into the film industry. So I stayed in Orlando for a while. So when I was there, I was like, well, I want to start a business. So I bought a camera because I already knew film. I did photography growing up on film and all that. So anyway, so I started my business in 2006 and was just shooting anything, anything and everything, right? So anyone that would pay me essentially. And so I started there. And then I worked mostly contracting with like a little bit of my own thing, worked for Disney, did the like the department that does like the fairy tale weddings.
That's fun.
Yeah. So it was really like strange and fun and cool. Like driving down Main Street in like a van, like with the clients, cool. At like 3 a.m. And then we like turn the castle lights on and they're like, oh my gosh. So, yeah. It's like, ooh, that's really cool. Yeah. It was fun. So did that. But then I eventually left after a few years, because I am creative at heart, obviously. And I was a little too artistic for them, says my manager. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to quit. So I quit and then moved to Brooklyn 10 days later, one-way ticket, and just made it work there. Started working in New York, worked for like some really big studios, did like New York Fashion Week, like all sorts of stuff, got more into weddings there. And then eventually made it to Iceland about 4 years ago, after coming here a lot before that, but I got my residency 4 years ago. So now I'm here, as a elopement photographer. A few a year at this point, because I do mostly coaching now. So I've been coaching since 2019, mentoring since 2018. I'm a certified master coach, certified hypnotherapist. That's cool. And
Cool. So throughout your time in Orlando and Brooklyn, you had both a business and you were working for other people. Is that correct?
Yes. Okay. For parts of it. Yeah. So I was doing like contract work with like a big like Globo wedding like company. In New York, because I didn't have any New York stuff. So I was like, well, I need like skyscrapers, not, like, beaches and palm trees, know? So I did that. And I did, while I was like getting my business off the ground, I was a barista and I worked for Hard Rock. I was a corporate trainer for them. So I did the front of the house training, and stuff. So it's like kind of a mixed bag because it takes a minute to get businesses, off the ground. And back in the day, there wasn't online courses and there wasn't like hardly anybody even had websites back then, So it was like it's a whole different thing. So I did a little bit of juggling until I could finally like go full time and all that.
Cool. Yeah. Cool. So when you did go full time, how did you kind of picture your life looking?
This is probably not the answer that you're looking for.
That's okay.
But I didn't have one. So I definitely worked off of survival mode. I'm very gritty, very hustly. So all I knew, the only thing that I could really picture was that I just wanted to be my own boss and have that freedom of like my own schedule. Cause as somebody with ADHD, like, the strict schedules and the strict, like, just everything I couldn't do. Like, it was just not me, you know? So that was my only goal, was just to be my own boss, make my own schedule, make my own money, and not be capped at the money that I was making, you know? So that's really as far as I saw it. I didn't see Iceland. I didn't see any of that. I was just like, I'm going to be my own boss. And that's that.
Yeah. So that freedom piece is what really got you into the entrepreneurship world. And that's interesting that it's tied to your ADHD as well.
Yes. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. So when did you first discover that you had ADHD?
I was diagnosed when I was 9.
Okay.
So, but see, back in the day, there was no help or anything. So though I was diagnosed, like my parents weren't told what it was really, or like the only thing that they were like is like, she can't focus, because I would draw and everything. Like my original background is fine arts, like drawing and painting and stuff like that. Yeah. And so I would just draw and everything. They're like, she can't pay attention, you know? And so like, that's kind of all they were told. So even though I was diagnosed when I was 9, they put me on medicine and I eventually like got off of it, but there was no like, I didn't learn about my brain or anything like that. And it wasn't until I was an adult that I was like, wait, what is ADHD? Like, what is this thing? And so I'm obsessed with brains, like, especially that's really what got me into coaching, because I'm obsessed with brains, psychology, neuroscience, like all of that. And so I like dove really deep into like how ADHD brains are like wired differently, and all the different parts of our brains that are different. And that's really when I was like, oh, got it.
Yeah.
So for a lot of my life, I honestly just like forgot I had it for like a lot part of my life. Yeah.
So I was diagnosed in college, but like quietly diagnosed. Like I was medicated, but they didn't put it in a record because they didn't want it to affect me going forward. Like they didn't want that diagnosis to prevent me from getting any kind of job or anything.
Yeah.
Because it can
change. Absolutely. Yeah, it's a learning disability.
Yeah. And so I was like, at that time, I was medicated for a little while. I was medicated for anxiety and depression too. So when
they're often comorbid,
when I kind of got out of that phase and I was out of college, I stopped taking medication and I honestly just forgot about it.
Yeah, that's what happened to me once I got myself off the medication. Because like, you're creative too. I don't know if this was your experience, but like, when I was taking medication, I felt like my brain just wasn't my brain. And like my creativity was like totally changed. Like if you look at my paintings from when I was medicated to when I was off the medication, looks like two totally different artists. Like,
oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. I was just like, I was like, this isn't me. So I like took myself off I think I was a senior in high school. I just like took myself off. And then after that, I like literally just forgot that like I have this thing. It's the same thing. Yeah.
Well, and then I was like honestly managed. Like I was fine until COVID. And that really like being out of any kind of routine or, you know, like systems all gone. Like I have 3 kids. So they were here all the time for a year and a half and we stayed home. Like that was what we did. So that really triggered like all of those things, all of the mental stuff and changed things. And so now I am medicated. I've been medicated for like maybe a year.
Okay.
And it's been interesting because I'm like still messing with like which prescription and, you know, dosage and all of that. And I take something that's short acting so that I can choose when I need the focus.
That's smart.
So I still have my creativity, I feel like. And I feel like even on the meds, like it just helps me focus on what I'm doing really more than anything else. And opens up my brain. Yeah, it's cool. So
that's really cool. I love that works for you. Yeah. I haven't tried any of the newer things, right? Because it hasn't been it's been like 20 some years. So like I haven't tried any of the newer things. So maybe maybe it could be helpful.
I'm on old school Ritalin, like just
OG
Ritalin, and it's like it works. But I've tried other things along the way, and they haven't worked. But my daughter was diagnosed, in first grade. So she's in 7th grade now. So she's been on a journey of meds too. So it's been interesting to see like, and her diagnosis, like, oh yeah, me too. Like,
yeah, exactly. It is genetic. So
yeah. So let's talk about kind of the challenges that you find that people face with ADHD and in terms of focus and organization and how that affects us as business owners.
Yeah. That's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. So personally, I find that like I have to have systems in place and I have to have
100%.
Like, routine and schedule. What have you found to be helpful for you?
Oh my goodness. If you could actually see like what's not on the screen, because like as a coach, I have to have this like looking really nice, but everything around me is just like systems everywhere. And like, I know this is a podcast and like people probably can't see, but I just have like all these like crazy like systems like all around me. So I think it's a combination. So for me, because I feel like since I started business, it's been like nothing but coping mechanisms, right? Because once you get into business and people are paying you money, there's that pressure, right? Where like you don't want to drop the ball and all of that. So like when I first started business, I didn't have CRMs. I didn't have like any programming. There was nothing. So I was trying to figure out like, okay, I have all these emails and I'm getting all these inquiries and I have like all these clients. So like at first it was real old school and it was just like spreadsheets and stuff like that. But then eventually you start dropping the ball because, you have your cool little paper planner and like it just sometimes you forget to look at it, So I started eventually like forgetting calls because I shoot weddings mostly. And so like I would forget like the consult, and then be like, oh my God. And back in the day, this was before Zoom, before any of that. So it was like you meet them face to face, right? So like I would just like, and it would like, and it wasn't even a like, it would just completely slip my mind, right? And then a day later, I would be like, oh no, what do I do? So I eventually started to piece together like automations and stuff like that. And I ended up getting a CRM. I started with 17 Hats, but I moved away from them. I've been with Dubsado for a long, long time since then. Yeah. So for me right now in both of my brands, the CRM is kind of like the life, like not the life force, but the backbone, if you will, of my organization. So I use it 100% to my advantage. So like my workflows are almost completely automated. So like I don't have to worry about forgetting anything or dropping the ball or anything like that. So when it comes to my actual client workflows, because like, and here in Iceland, the elopements are very labor intensive. Like I am planning for them. I'm organizing for them. I'm literally 3-for-1. I'm the coordinator, the planner, and the photographer. So like I do all of it. So I've had to set up Dubsado for like, I wish I could show you my Dubsado. It's really nuts. I have like, the way that I set up workflows and like teach workflows to people is it's like, I call it a 3-pillar system. So I have like 3 main workflows for like the parts of the job that it is. So I have the workflow for the time that they contact me until they're booked. And then I have a workflow from the minute they sign their contract until the day before their event. And then I have the third one, which is from the day after the event. So it sends them the thank you and all that stuff.
Love it.
All the way through till the albums, right? Okay. So I have that set up. So I don't have to worry about anything. And then I have what I call accessory workflows. So they're the ones that it's like, if this, then that. So if it's something where if it like slightly deviates, like I need to do maybe a separate nurturing, campaign with them, if they're a lead kind of thing, I'll just slap that workflow on there and it'll start to nurture them. If I have to do certain follow-ups, like all these things, right? So it's like a totally, if this, then that, I'll just like slap it on there. So that keeps me organized and solid. And I do the same thing in my coaching business, which is far less moving parts. Cause like in coaching, we like show up and I coach them. So it's like, far less, but I do retreats and a lot and like in-person events and stuff like that too. So I open tickets a year in advance. So I have a year nurturing for them as well. And I help them plan their trip here to Iceland before they get here on the retreat and all that. So I use my CRM as like that. It's like my foundation backbone of all of my organization. And then I use ClickUp for my project management. So I do that. And my planner, my full focus planner, I've been using for forever. So I do like this combination of all of the, I cannot forget about this tasks go into my ClickUp. And then I go from ClickUp and I decide what priorities I want to do, which we could talk about that in a second because priorities in ADHD is hard.
So hard.
It's so hard, like super hard. It's taken me a long time to like, I'm really fortunate because I'm trained in brains and how brains function and all this stuff. So I'm able to create like ways to circumvent some of that.
Yeah.
Which is great. But anyway, we can talk about that later. But so then I go to my full focus and I write stuff down, but that's, I'm not sponsored by them. This is not like a weird endorsement, but this is what I do because with ADHD, we have so many ideas and we have to like brain dump our emotions and processes and thoughts to just kind of get them out. So like on the, I'll show you a blank one. Each day on the planner, there's just this like blank note spot.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So I use that to kind of like brain dump and draw like whenever I'm doing my marketing things, I have like all these like crazy charts in here and then I flush it out and then put it into ClickUp. If that makes sense.
That's cool.
So I do like both. So those are like the main ways, but then out of sight, out of mind, ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
So then I have behind my computer, which you can't see, I have all of my yearly goals. So they're constantly in my face. I have a million and one of these like little stickies for myself to, yeah, exactly. Same color. So I have those around. And then I have here, actually, I know the audience won't be able to see it, but you'll be able to see what I mean. Right here. This is my year in review. So this is each quarter.
Wow.
Like this. And so I have all of my like major things that I need to do for elopements and coaching and because I have programs that I run and I have the in-person retreat and private retreats and like all this stuff. So I use this and this you will love. It is a static whiteboard.
Okay.
So you can just tear off a piece. It's like a paper towel holder.
What?
Here, look.
We'll have to link that.
Yes.
That's
I don't
so
know
cool.
if it's in America. But yeah, so I just tear them off and look, you just stick them wherever.
Amazing.
I know.
I love that. That's so cool.
So I have these around for the out of sight, out of mind stuff.
I have like anxiety about whiteboards because I'm afraid something's going to get wiped off that I don't want to. But so I found wet erase markers.
Yeah, cool.
That you can use on dry erase. So it's like you have to have a wet thing to wipe it off, but it's wipe offable. So that's
amazing.
Vis-a-vis those like transparency, like when old school like projector, that's the markers that they used on those. Yeah. So good.
Very cool.
Yeah. So with two businesses, do you find, okay, two questions, I guess. Do you find it really hard to keep track of both? And have you ever thought about dropping one or you really like love having two? I personally love having two. Also find it really hard. So you've got a website for your small business, but you're not really sure if it's working. I've got a brand new free resource that gives you a grade for your website, like old school report card. It's a super easy to use checklist. You'll go through, answer questions, and at the end, you'll get a grade for each page of your site, plus your site overall. And you'll also get next steps to what you need to do to make your website convert and connect with your dream clients. So you have a site that sells your services for you, and you can get back to life just how you pictured it. Head to dearkatebrandstrategy.com/report card to get that free resource now.
Yes. So, so yes and yes and yes and kinda. So I don't find it. Okay, that's not true. it is difficult sometimes, right? Because the actual fulfillment of the two brands is not difficult, right? Like I can shoot elopements with my eyes closed, and like coaching people is just, I like get into flow and it's like a whole thing. But the marketing and getting the one off the ground and keeping the other one in a maintenance phase, because my photography company it's good. Like I have zero want to grow it anymore. Like it works without me. Like I have been working on that brand for 10 years. So I'm like number one ranked on all my keywords, and like I get leads all the time, and I haven't updated anything. I've written one blog, I think, in the past 2 years. Like I just don't need to anymore. And my price point, like the average price is $15,000. So I'm like, I'm fine. Right. So that I'm more just kind of maintenance. And I have a VA who is neurotypical. Nice. She's amazing. She gives me pokes when I need it. So like she helps with that part, with like keeping my clients organized when there's like communications and all the planning part of stuff. So if I didn't have her, I would lose my mind. So get an assistant if you need it. They're wonderful. Anyone listening. And then the coaching stuff, it's like having the time and the space to like flip my brain back and forth from like photography to coaching stuff, because coaching marketing is 100% different than photography marketing. Yeah. So it's like, that's been the hardest, but now I'm okay to balance them. At first, like when COVID hit, and because I live on an island and all of my clients are travel here. Nobody's local. The wedding industry in Scandinavia is like a whole different thing. Like they get married after they've had like 4 kids, and it's like a different thing. Yeah. Yeah. It's like completely different. So I don't have any local clients. So like borders shut down. Everybody was freaking out. Everything moved. So like the 2020, 2021, and a good chunk of 2022 were rather difficult, but now that everything's kind of like evened out, it is a lot easier. But do you want to know a little like silly trick that I did when I was like losing my fucking mind, or effing mind? So I have these little, they're somewhere over here. What I had to do is I had to wear different bracelets to like remind myself and anchor myself into the brand that I was in. So like when I was wearing my photo bracelet, I was like only thinking about photography, because, with ADHD, your brain will be like, you'll be doing one thing, but, back here, your brain is like thinking of all the other things that you could be doing or should be doing or whatever. So I had these different bracelets for like when I had to work on like specific brands. Like I put this on, I'm focused on that. That's it.
That's so smart.
Yeah, it's called anchoring in coaching. But yeah, so I did that because it was actually really hard at first, but now it's not. And then the other question, do I ever feel like quitting or giving one up? Yeah, I am in the middle of transitioning out of elopements for sure. Okay. But it's because I've been doing it for so long, and I'm just like, it's run its course for me, I think. But yeah, so we'll see, probably like 2 years or something.
Okay. There's parts of the photography business that I can't imagine not doing. Like I love it. I love that work. But I also love like web design and brand strategy, and I'm like super into it and really want to pursue it. And it is hard to market both for sure. Yes. But like you, luckily I have a steady client base. So I can like send out an email, hey, who needs a session? I want to shoot. And that usually drums up some business. But so let's talk about advantages of ADHD and like what our unique perspectives are as entrepreneurs with ADHD. Yeah. What are your favorite things about your ADHD?
I love ideas. Like I love creative thinking. And I think that with ADHD brains, because we have so many trains of thought happening at once, we're really creative at problem solving and putting things together. So I really love that part of having ADHD, and being able to see, like, when I'm coaching people, it's kind of weird. Like I'll back it up. I help a lot of people with their branding, not like, not the side of branding that you help people with, the other side, the like philosophical side of branding. Not the, I don't get into the visuals. I'm like, hire somebody for that. I have no idea. But like the actual making your brand kind of thing. And so I help with that, their marketing and their sales a whole lot. So when we're like figuring this stuff out, as they're explaining things to me and we're doing these exercises of these, I call them like your future you exercises. And we're seeing like, what are we trying to align all this to? Because of the way that my brain works, as they're talking, it's almost like this like projector pops up. And so it's so strange because it's like certain words, it's called almost like a synesthesia. Like certain words will like hang and float. And the more they say that word, it'll get like brighter. And I'm like, okay, these are the things we need to add into your brand, right? And like being able to connect, like one of my sweet spots in coaching, because most of my clients are photographers in coaching also, obviously. Like attracts like. So one of the sweet spots in coaching is that they come to me when they're kind of at this like crossroads, like in this transition where they've been doing it for a while, but they know they want like more. They don't know what the more looks like that whole thing. And a lot of times with people, it makes you feel really uneasy and restless and unhappy, especially for visionaries that are like, purpose driven and, they have like this whole thing that they want, but they don't quite know what it looks like. So a lot of times with my brain, when they're explaining like what they want, and to them, it feels like they're nowhere close, but like I can like, it's like this weird projector where I can connect the dots, right? Of like where they want to be and what they're doing now. And actually you're really close and we just need to shift this, and this, and then like you're good. So that's like super strange thing, but it is super helpful. So I do that a lot and I love it. I think that.
Yeah. Well, and I think one of the other like kind of superpowers we have is that we're able to see that not everything is going to work for us, and it's not going to work for it's not going to work for everybody, period. So being able to see like different solutions to problems and like how, maybe in-person sales is great for somebody else, but for me, it was total shit. I hated it.
I can't. Same.
Like I made money, but it's not what I wanted to do. Like, and figuring out and like giving people permission to like do the thing that they want to do, and how can you make money doing that thing, I think is a superpower, like vision thing for sure.
Yeah. That's what I help like everybody with, really. And 100%. And we really shouldn't too, like if you're neurodivergent and you're listening, like a lot of mainstream advice like really does not work for our brains. So like take what of that advice that works for you and literally forget the rest. Like don't worry about it. It'll be okay. And like with my photography brand, I completely built it completely different than like whatever the industry was saying to do. And like, do whatever works for you. It's okay.
Well, and like when you do that, when you make it different than what the industry says, you stand out and you find the people that are attracted to you.
This is how I brand. It's all about like being your weird, shiny self. And that's how you make more money. Cause like my sweet spot in coaching is I help people make like 5-figure bookings. And like, it's literally that. I'm like, be your magical self, like be weird, stand out. Cause no one's going to pay you more money if they can't justify it. So like, be you.
Right. Okay. So have you faced any like stigmas or misconceptions related to having ADHD as an entrepreneur, and like how have you kind of navigated that? Does it feel uncomfortable to be like, hey, I have ADHD as a business owner, or how are you addressing that kind of in your?
I don't care. So like, I've never been like, I'm just one of those people that I'm like, I am who I am. And like, that's it. Like, I don't try to be anything else. So like, I've never been afraid to say I have ADHD, and I understand the stigmas, right? Like I totally get it. And if you're listening and you're like, I'm not brave to do that, or I feel weird doing that, that's totally okay too. But I've never felt a stigma with it, and I've never felt bad about it. And I've always been the kind of person that like I love being different. Like I've never tried to fit in ever. And like growing up, I was like the weird kid and like metal band t-shirts. Like I've never been a cool kid. So like I've never tried to fit in. So like I actually have loved it. And I've loved that it's been a point of me being different. And like, yeah. So I personally have never felt a stigma or like felt ashamed or anything. I'm just like, this is my brain. This is why I like it. And
yeah,
such
that's
is life.
cool. I think sometimes I feel that stigma a little bit because like I'm worried that people are going to think I'm not going to get the job done or, you know, do it on time or communicate. But honestly, like I think probably being honest about the situation is easier. It makes people understand a little bit more.
Yeah. And you can tell them like how you have set things up for that not to happen.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So
yeah, that's so true. So what advice would you give to other entrepreneurs that have ADHD?
Yeah, I would say one, what I said earlier, take what works for you, leave the rest. If you are struggling with it, because a lot of times whenever we are trying to do the like round peg in a square hole thing all the time, like you get burnout very easily, you get overwhelmed easily, you feel like things are crumbling and all of that. And really, whenever that's happening, that's just your nervous system unregulated and freaking out. So if you're in that space or you haven't figured out what does work for you and you are feeling that like square peg, round hole, forcing everything, pushing everything, everything's crumbling, take it steps back. Like, just like breathe and like let yourself actually kind of regulate and like ask yourself, what do I need in this moment, and see what comes out. Cause that's something that I see so often in our community is like, we need rest. Like we need more rest than the average person. And we, like, for instance, I only work average 4 hours a day. Cause like anything more than that, I'm way overdoing it with my brain. And then you get yourself in all these weird situations. And whenever your brain is like that and your nervous system is like on the fritz, that's when like your mood swings get crazy and you get even more forgetful and your executive function gets even like more difficult and all those things. So really just look at what you need and like do it. It's okay. There's no rules to business. Like there's literally not a single rule. You can do whatever you want.
Pay your taxes.
Pay your taxes. Yes. Pay your taxes and make money and be responsible and don't harm people. Other than that, like you can set your business up however it works for you. And like, you don't have to, like you said, IPS, like if that doesn't work for you, you don't have to do it. If booking 50 people a month doesn't work for you, don't do it. Like, yeah. So that would be my biggest advice. Cause a lot of times when people come to me, they've been like pushing for so long and they don't like allow themselves the rest that's really needed in our bodies to like sort themselves out. So
and I think just
I would say
that time for like introspection and figuring out what, you know, what makes you happy, what brings you joy. And then really like diving into that and finding ways to get rid of the stuff that doesn't bring you joy.
That doesn't work. And acceptance also, like radical self-acceptance has been one of my my mottos from my whole life. Like, accept it. It's okay. Like that your brain is different. Like it's fine. Accept it instead of like fighting with it. So like once you accept it, then that's when you can figure out your modifications for like, maybe you need to put your keys somewhere else other than your, like, you know, in your bedroom. Maybe they have to go on the floor in front of the door. That's fine. Right. So like once you accept that things maybe need to be different, then it opens you up for that permission. Like you were talking about, to just like, it's okay. It'll be okay.
Do you follow Casey Davis? Have you heard of her? Her book is... Does
she do the laundry or the... Yes, I've seen her talk.
Yes. Yeah. So she's so good. And she has a great book called How to Keep House While Drowning. That she talks about like housekeeping with like neurodivergence and like building those systems to where they work for you. One of the big thing is the laundry. So she was talking about how like, why are we folding laundry? Like,
I don't fold laundry.
I don't either. My husband does, and then it ends up unfolded still.
Yeah.
But her laundry system is that there's just baskets for everything to go in, and it goes in unfolded. And
exactly.
it just what difference does it make? It doesn't. Yeah. But we are
who made
conditioned,
that rule?
right? We're conditioned to that's the rule, that we fold the laundry and we put it away in a drawer, and this is where it goes. And just that book opened up my brain a little bit to more ideas of ways that you can work with your brain instead of fighting it. So
exactly. Just work with it.
Yeah.
I need to read it. I've seen one talk from her and I was like, yeah, I should read that book.
Yeah. It's short. Audiobook is great.
Perfect.
Do you like audiobooks?
Yes and no, because with the ADHD, I'm one of the ones that has slower audio processing.
Okay.
So, because I have to stim all the time, if I have audiobooks, I have a compulsion that I have to do other things. And then before I know it, it's so many pages have gone, and then I come back to, and I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
So I don't listen to too many.
It's hit or miss, definitely. I always have to listen to it at a faster speed.
100%. 1.5 at least.
Yeah. But then I'll play Candy Crush. It's not Candy Crush. It's a different game, but it's like Candy Crush. While listening to a book, and that
of course
keys me in. But I use Scribd. Have you ever heard of Scribd?
No. What's that?
It's a subscription that's $15 a month, and it's unlimited audiobooks.
What?
Yeah.
I'm writing that down. No.
Yeah, it's a great one. But that's where I listened to How to Keep House Without Drowning. Yeah. Listen to a lot of business books on that.
Okay. Yeah. I'm going to look that up.
Yeah. It's pretty great. I'll put a link to it in the show notes as well.
Yeah. Perfect.
I want to get back to, you talked about priorities and ADHD.
Yes.
What's your advice there?
Yes. So this is something, this kind of actually ties into one of the other tips that I wanted to give, where part of the acceptance thing, where it's okay to try things and keep trying things until it works, and tweaking things. So this is actually one of the things that took me kind of a while to get because with ADHD brains, everything feels urgent. And so I tried that Eisenhower thing. Yeah. That's put them into floor blocks. And I was like, okay, cool. That makes total sense. And then everything was in the urgent. And then the non-urgent was my personal care stuff. And I'm like, wait, no, that should be priority, So after a while, I kind of sorted out that I am not going to actually think long-term. And so how I do prioritize now is short term. So I have, for my long term, that board right here that I told you about, my calendar. So I can see what's coming up. Because what I do, here's the whole system. So what I do in November is I plan out my whole year coming up. So I get it out on the whiteboard with my own coach, and we go through it. So I have my goalposts that I want to hit that I've accepted can change as the year goes. So I have an idea of what I need to be doing for my different offers and all these different things where I can wiggle in elopements and all of that. So I know once booking season comes, what to do. So anyway, so I do the big overview first so I can kind of understand, because if you don't have an overview of where you're going, everything will feel urgent because you think you have to get it all done right now today, right?
Right.
So because I have this general overview, I can say oh, I actually don't need to get out this gifted workshop. I don't need to script that today. I can actually do that in 2 months. It's cool. So first I have that. I have my big overview. And then the rest that I do is I go, okay, this month I have to get this thing done. So from this thing, what are I chunk it down. So I go, what are the steps that are needed to complete this thing? And then from those, the small chunks, then I lay it out and I'm like, okay, well, this week, what is my energy? My energy is this today, which means I can probably get 2 of these things done. Great. And I'll just do it. So that's how I'll prioritize. And then the other filter, if you will, of this is I go, okay, what is an actual money making task? Because a lot of times with ADHD and being an introvert, we do all of the busy behind the scenes work where you're like, let me update my website again.
Yeah.
Like it's unnecessary. So we do a lot of these like just busy works that don't bring you in clients. It's not lead generating. It's not sales, anything like that. So that's my next filter within my list. I'm like, okay, it's urgent to me if it will make me money.
Right.
So I'll do that. So that's how I have to prioritize what I'm doing and just keep like chugging along with my big like year projection.
It's so tricky. I was in a like a mastermind group recently, and they were like, so what's your struggle right now? And it's like prioritizing. Like, which thing do I do first?
Yes.
Because like do you get that overwhelm, like decision paralysis?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Which is why, like, my regular life, I try to take away as many decisions as possible. So, like, for lunch, I just have a bunch of, like, frozen, like, vegan burritos.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's great. So, like, I try to take away as many of those decisions because we get in a paralysis with it.
Yeah. I feel like if something has too many steps, I just won't do any of them.
That's where the chunking down comes in handy because one of the things that ADHD brains do also, because we're really bad at seeing time. So we think that like, this is actually something I personally do. I just call it like the 2% rule. And I'm like, all right, cool. So if I'm looking at a task and in my mind, I'm like, it's going to take all day. But in reality, it takes about 5 minutes. So I do this thing where if I have a bunch of these where when you look at it and you feel very overwhelmed by the thing, if I chunk it down and can see, I can do like 4 of these steps in 10 minutes. I'll just do that and call it a day. Just 2% of this thing, which sometimes you'll keep going, because you realize it's not that bad. It's a thing human brains do too, not even just ADHD brains. And then if it's something I can't chunk down, and it is just like a thing that will take a while, I just go, I'll just do like a 2%, half hour. I'll just do 30 minutes of this, 5 minutes of this, and then it kind of like gets me over that overwhelm hump.
Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. I it's been home tasks lately. Like,
yes. You know what I've started doing with that actually, which I finally found my like override system for this. So do you know about PDA with ADHD people and autistic people?
Tell me what that is.
So it's this fun mechanism in your brain where you are adverse to anybody giving you any kind of orders, including yourself. So I have that. So I've had to realize that a lot of the like house tasks, when I'm like, I need to do laundry or I need to do the dishes or I need to sweep, it's me giving myself like an order. And I'm like, no. So what I started doing when these things happen is change my language and go, okay, I have my bowl of personal things I need to do. And I go, what do I want to do right now? I'm like, I want to do this. And I'll fit those in. If I'm like, okay, I have like 10 minutes between calls. What do I want to do for 10 minutes? I'll empty the dishwasher. And it's like, you don't have to think about it. And you don't have to like do any of those like gymnastics that you do in your head all the time. Yeah. So that's my like newest override that I have.
Do. Okay.
Yeah. It's called
I'm going to try it.
Pervasive decision. I forget what the A is. Pervasive decision something. I'll send it to you.
Okay.
I'll send you the link to like the organization. But yeah.
Cool. Avoidance. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. So here's another question for you. What do you think entrepreneurs...
Demand avoidance. Oh my God, sorry.
Pervasive
demand avoidance.
Okay.
Yes. Okay, go on. Sorry.
So next question is, what advice would you give, or what do you think that entrepreneurs without ADHD can learn from the neurodivergent ADHD population?
Yeah, a lot. I think what they can learn is that there are so many ways to get to the same goal. Like there's so many other paths that people can take, and that like neurodivergent people tend to have like we talked about, like really creative like ideas and solutions to things. And like, that's one. And then the other is that not everybody thinks like you. So like give some grace on some things. And like, I would love to see the conversation change, because a lot of times it's like, how can you try to get neurodivergent people to act like neurotypical people? And like, I would just love for that to change and just like not be a thing, and like understand where our strengths are. Like anybody else has a strength. Like,
right.
Yeah. That's what I would like for them to learn, is that there's so many ways.
Yeah.
It's not just one. Yeah.
Well, and it takes all of us. Like we need both neurotypical and neurodivergent brains to do stuff. Like,
yeah, exactly.
It's good to partner together. Can you think of any misconceptions or myths about ADHD and entrepreneurship that you'd like to debunk?
Okay. This might be a hot button topic.
Okay.
But I hate the squirrel brain thing. Like, I hate the whole, like, we are unable to focus, like, a thing. And that's first. It's not true. It's not that we can't focus. It's that we actually focus either too much, or that we see a lot of different paths for our focus. So I think that whole like squirrel brain thing is just like an untruth. And I don't think as business owners we're like, oh, a squirrel, and then like we're just off. I don't know. It bothers me, because I don't think it's accurate at all. And then also, too, with the disorganization thing, I don't think that we're all disorganized. I think that sometimes it's not that we don't know how to organize. It's just that sometimes we don't know how to, like we talked about, like prioritize the organization or systemize the organization.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of these misconceptions that like all ADHD people are squirrel brained and we aren't organized and we all have dirty houses and like we like are completely forgetful with everything, which isn't true. It's just our short-term memory is kind of messy in some ways. But it also too goes back to what is our body doing? Because if we really are completely dysregulated and burnt out and like overwhelmed, we will do some of these things a lot more. But it's not our it's not our base, right? It's not always that. So I see that a lot with this whole like, our houses are always dirty and stuff like that. I'm like, not always.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think the idea of organization having to look like one thing, like if it's not a spreadsheet, it's not.
Well, that too. So that's another thing too, where like I would love to see some things change, because like, especially with like in the education space and things like that, it is this like, this is how things are organized. Like you said, like, it's like, oh, this Google spreadsheet, when really some of our brains work better with like a mind map. Or some of us who are like in coaching, I'm trained with like the different ways that people process information. So like some people need to touch and feel and see colors, and like the way that we interact with the world and take in the information is different too. So like, organization and learning and like, taking in things, it's not one way. And like, as a child, you've probably felt this too, where like, maybe they thought like, oh, you weren't listening because you were like, doing this when they were talking, because actually you have to put your left ear out to process better, or like just certain things like that, where it's like, we are maybe not smart because the way we're getting our information isn't actually how we process it, so it's actually, that's the problem, and not, so this whole like one way of like how everybody needs to learn, how organization looks, how your house needs to be set up, like all those things.
Yeah. Well, and I think there's so much for us to learn as coaches and educators to make sure that the information that we're providing is accessible to all different brain types.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Like in my programs, I like to have like my video and then the text and then the audio, right? Like it's it's very helpful.
Yeah.
And like when I do in-person retreats, like I set out all these things for people to play with. So there's like, we have like those whiteboards with all the colors, and there's paints, and there's like little like sticky things they can play with, you know, and like all these different like materials to play with and stim with, you know, and we like walk and move, because a lot of people need somatics to learn, you know, and to move like their thoughts through them, you know. So like there's so many other ways that like, which is more fun. Like it's so much more fun to like play with stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, and like parenting wise, like advocating for my daughter and her schooling has given me so much information about, you know, how people learn in different brains and what, you know, like she has dysgraphia, which is it's like dyslexia, but for writing.
Yeah.
It's like her writing is just really difficult for her, but like learning like, oh, if she writes on like a straight up and down surface versus laying it flat, it makes a difference. And like, there's just so much. Yeah. There's so many different little things, like chewing gum helps focus, or having headphones on, or, you know, like, and we have to try all of these things to see what works for each of us.
Yeah. Well, that was the thing with me when I was in school, that they would like, I would get in trouble for, because like in order for me to like take in information, like I'll scribble on stuff, because like I have to stim in order for something else to happen. Like I have like a walking pad here, and like one of those like step things, you know. So whenever I'm doing things I need to take in information, I can move my body. But like in school, I would like do these like circles and like doodle on stuff. My nickname's literally Doodles from my grandmother. And like
cute.
They would just like yell at me and think I wasn't paying attention, and would like take my pens away, and I would be like, but I don't know what you're saying if I can't do that.
My daughter is a crafter, and her teachers have been letting her do that. And then sometimes it's like, she's not paying attention to anything because she's crafting. And it's like, it's a fine line. She makes these dragon puppets. Like,
oh, cool.
Like, okay, we can't make the dragon puppets in every class, though, sweetie.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. So it's just been interesting to like, have that other perspective too, as someone who helps someone with this neurodivergence too.
Yeah, I love that they're like working with her. That's, like from my generation to that's really awesome.
It's a struggle. Like, I'll be honest. Like, it's
so
been a
it's
fight.
Not very open.
Yeah, it's been a fight. She's on a 504, so legally they have to. There's been a lot of advocacy to get to that point, and sometimes it's forgotten. But it's been, as she's gotten older, she's learned to advocate for herself.
I love that. That is such a good skill to have.
Yeah, it's amazing. I love seeing that because like in middle school now, she has a 504 meeting every year, and she attends it now and helps come up with the accommodations that she needs. And
amazing.
Yeah. So then, it's great. Really cool. So now
that's
she
really cool.
can say, oh, excuse me, I need extra time on this, or I need to be in a separate room for this.
So awesome.
Yeah. It's good.
I love that. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's so good. Oh my gosh, Steph, I have enjoyed our conversation so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yes, tell me where we can find you. What are you most excited about right now in your business too?
Yes, so you can find me at my name, StephZakas.com. You can, let's see, I don't know if this is okay, but I have a 25 ways to market without social media that ADHD people love. Cool. It's on my site, or I can send you a link.
Yeah, we'll put it in the show notes. It's
really helpful for ADHD folks, because turns out a lot of ADHD folks don't like social media because it burns them out.
Yeah.
So I have that to offer. If anybody wants it, I'll send you the link. And then I'm most excited about the retreat. I have my yearly retreat coming up. Doors close actually today.
Oh my gosh.
So that's been on my brain a lot. And I just think that my most excited thing really is just my coaching brand, as you maybe have seen, is like so much for this community. And like, I'm really trying to change the narrative as much as I can, and especially in like the photography space, and just like, that's what I'm excited for, just to like give this other perspective and other voice. And where it goes, I don't know, but that's what I'm really excited for, what like gets me going.
So cool.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you again so much. I really loved our conversation, and I hope it's helpful for others.
Me too.
Thanks.